Hello and thank you for joining us on You and Your Money. I'm Bryan Hirsch, and this evening we explore the fascinating world of retirement and financial planning. So many are saving for retirement have the wrong perception about what retirement money represents. At retirement, the first prize would be to invest the capital and only live off the income. With inflation and longevity, it's getting a lot harder. And as we get older, there's great possibility that you're going to have to start eating into capital. The thought of this creates enormous anxiety and fear. Joining me this evening to discuss these is Daryl Bennett, Wealth Advisor, Sasfin Wealth, and Jordan Toy, Director, Legacy Family Wealth. Guys, good to have you on the program. Daryl, there's no doubt about it that when people think about, I'm going to have to eat into capital, even though they may be eating into capital right past 100, it's still a great nervous feeling. People want to leave a legacy. People want to actually say, I've got money, I'm going to live off my income, I've got sufficient. But it's getting harder and harder. Particularly with people living that much longer and inflation.
Absolutely. Listen, everybody wants to know that they're going to be okay. And I think it's also a problem because in companies, they're forcing retirement at age 63. So to your point, you know, if you're forced to be retired at 63 or 65 and people are living longer, then it can be a problem if they haven't started saving young enough, if they didn't start putting money away at a very early age.
And then, Daryl, even after that, people are going to have to start thinking about a career after a career. Because, you know, if you think about it, going back 20, 30 years ago, many people worked well into their 60s, late 60s, late 70s. I can never understand, by the way, why companies don't want older people there. Two reasons. One, you don't have to pay them that much. And two, you don't offer them a career. Here, I employ you two guys, I'm going to have to offer you a career. If I don't offer you careers, I'm not going to keep you. And I just don't understand why that happens. But it is the case. Jordan, from your particular point of view, how would you deal with anxiety? I mean, you haven't really got that. I mean, particularly the younger people you're dealing with. I mean, you've got the other end of things, which is retirement so far away. Why must I save so much for it? Getting that message through to the younger people that all of us have learnt over the many, many years how wrong we were not to start saving from day one.
100%, Bryan, and I think it is a tricky thing to, especially when chatting with some of my younger clients. You know, it's a problem that's way down the line, or at least so they think. But I do have some clients in retirement and some approaching retirement, and I think for me, I like to think that I'm quite analytically minded, so I like to try and quantify as best we can, you know, the different scenarios. So it's not that I can give a client a point estimate of, well, put away X amount per month and it'll all be okay. But you know, we can create a range of outcomes, and we use a number of tools to try and say, well, if you put away X amount per year and it grew at X rate, you know, what does that look like in retirement? What income can it support? And I find that for the younger clients, it's often a bit of a wake-up call, which is that often I'm not putting away enough for retirement. But yes, I find that helps allay some of the anxiety, or at least puts you in a position where you can plan a bit better because you have an idea of what the scenarios look like with a degree of certainty, or as much certainty as you can have in these kind of scenarios.
Now, Jordan, I hear what you say. I've been around with many of my clients for many, many years. But the guys nearing retirement now, you weren't with them at the beginning phase. You weren't there to guide them. You took them on as a client that had already been maybe being in their 40s, even 50s, if you're thinking close to retirement. And now you now landed with the problem. They're saying, you know, it's not as if you could help them to solve that problem. Certainly the younger people, you can explain to them. Daryl, the same goes with you. But that is, you now take on the client of 55. He's retiring in 10 years' time. You haven't been around for the last 30 years of his working life. How do you deal with that?
It's often a difficult conversation. But I think hiding from the reality of your situation is also not a solution. It's got to be confronted at a point in time, and it is difficult conversations I've had with clients to sort of sit and go, well, this is where we are now. Okay, we have X amount of time before retirement, and then we have X amount of time in retirement. You know, maybe we're not in the best position or you're not in the best position where you should be, but we can't change the past. We have to do the best we can from here going forward. So yes, sometimes, you know, and it's not that I can wave a magic wand and fix the whole situation, but we do the best we can going forward to try and put you in a better position.
But Daryl, you now landed with that problem, and you know it's such a difficult one because it's, you know, not only have you lost years, you've lost the power of compound interest.
Listen, also, Bryan, there's the monetary and the non-monetary aspects. I mean, I'm dealing with a client at the moment who's retired. He retired towards the end of last year, 63 years old. He's got enough money. The money's not the issue. The problem is he doesn't know what he's going to do. He was doing a bit of consulting work for a colleague of his. That's come to an end. And I said to him, Harvey, how are you enjoying your retirement? He says, no, he's got to find something. He's too young to be retired, so he's worried about his health aspect. And what is he going to do from hour to hour, day to day? There's so much golf you can play. There's so many, you can travel and you can play golf and you can have one or two hobbies. And if you don't have a hobby, it's even a bigger problem. But so I think what's important is younger people must take a long-term view. If they've started saving when they're young enough, fine. But most people haven't. And this is a global phenomenon. If they haven't saved enough when they were young, then they must come to the realization they're not going to be able to retire at 65 because they don't have enough money. So they need to start looking at other ways to supplement their income.
But Daryl, that's the big problem, because everyone you speak to is, yes, I contribute to a retirement fund, I'm a member of a pension fund, I've got some savings. But putting that all together to say, this is what it's worth today, this is what it's going to be worth in the years to come, including future growth on monies that you're going to continue to invest. This is what your number's going to be. With inflation, this is the income you're going to require, less the expenses that will fall away. And I think you'll agree, there are 3 expenses that should fall away when you get to retirement. You should have a home paid for, you should have no debt, and you should have a good healthcare program. And then you've got to escalate that by a rate of inflation, and then you've got to marry the two.
Yes.
And when you do that, it becomes so much difficult, because they may have enough at retirement, but if you think about it, people are saving for 30 years and then living 30 years after with no savings, no more wage to come in. So that is an issue that one's got to take into account.
Well, it's a problem. I hope they've got good relationships with their children. Because their children might be supporting them or looking after them. That's a reality. It's called the sandwich generation.
Yeah, and that's even a bigger problem, because the sandwich generation has got its own children to look after.
Yes.
It's got its own financial problems and very difficult to look after parents. Jordan, so the message we've got to get across to individuals is, do the calculations. Know where you are in this race. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Where are you? I mean, we just finished running the Comrades. Daryl, I don't know, you didn't run the Comrades morning, but you were swimming in -8-degree waters, which is, I'm not sure if that's even more mad than running the Comrades. But and to those who ran the Comrades, well done to all of you. Well done to Gerdersteen. Absolutely proud. We're proud of you. We hope it doesn't take its toll of you when you bring back the gold, the Olympics gold. But we're very proud of it. But just saying, it's a marathon, and you've got to know. I mean, when you run a marathon, you know the stages. This is where I'm going to be at this point in time. This is where I want to be at that point in time in the race. You've got to do the same with retirement.
It's an education. The thing is, it's an education, and the compounding effect is not difficult or complicated to understand. The problem is people start too late. Compounding should be taught to grade 10s. At a high school level, to a 15, 16-year-old child who's getting pocket money of a couple $100. Even if you're putting $100, it's not about the money, it's not about the quantum, it's about creating a habit, building a habit. So when that child finishes school, goes to university or college and gets into his first job or her first job, she's had the experience of 6, 7 years of saving, and then you've got a better chance to get to retirement and have enough.
Jordan, the kids are learning about it. I was absolutely amazed. My grandson, grade 8, wrote his first set of exams. He's written tests before, but this last June he just wrote the first. And I was in Cape Town, and I did economics with him. I could not believe what they do in economics in grade 8. So they are starting to learn them. They are starting to put them into curriculum. I don't know, when you were at school, was economics a subject?
Definitely, yeah. Economics and accounting were both subjects you could take. I didn't particularly take economics, which I ended up regretting at varsity because I enjoyed it a hell of a lot at university. But I do think it's very important. I think far too many people, especially when you're younger and entering the workforce, it's almost a box-ticking exercise. You go, well, I've got a retirement account, so my retirement is taken care of. But I don't think people delve deep enough into what does it actually look like in there. You just go, well, I've got a retirement annuity. That means my retirement planning is kind of taken care of, which is often not
the same. I've got life cover, I've got disability. What is the quantum? Jordan, you and I were chatting last week. You were talking about statistics. You sent me lovely information about the performance of American markets after in the election year, what happened in that election year. You were going to have a look. I don't know if you had a chance to have a look. Is there anything that can give you any indication of what we can expect in the same matrix with the South African election?
For sure, and I sent it to you because I thought you'd also enjoy the read, which you seem to have. So I think it was quite interesting, and I think for me it actually talked more to the noise in markets. We get a lot of information, and there's a lot of information out there around markets, elections, and it's obviously relevant this year with our election just having concluded, and the Americans are having their election later this year. And the reason I say it's noise in the market is I think, and I talk about an old saying, correlation is not causation. So I think the results of that study showed that 83%, since the S&P 500 started, 83% of the election years produced positive returns on the S&P. But that doesn't mean that the election produced those positive returns. I think, and what I'm more broadly talking to is elections cause concerns among investors, naturally so. It has an impact on economic policy and so on. But I think we tend to over-extrapolate. It's a part of the puzzle, but it's not the entire puzzle. There's a lot of other macroeconomic factors at play in election years. Interest rates and inflation are arguably probably more impactful on markets at the moment than an election might be. So it sounds odd to say, but I read these things and it's an interesting read, but I think we have to take a lot of this with a pinch of salt because in the modern world there is an enormous amount of information out there, but that doesn't mean we need to listen to every bit of information that crosses our desk.
Well, that's what drives markets anyway, fundamentals versus sentiment. If the sentiment's negative, markets are going to be down. If sentiment's positive, markets will be up as long as fundamentals. Daryl, I'm going to give you a little puzzle to do when we take our break. I want you to tell our viewers, if you're 20, if you're 30, if you're 40, if you're 50, if you're 60, how much you should be contributing to retirement funds had you not started before. Why should I give you an easy break? We're going to take a short break. Stay tuned.